So, second repair on this little BMW 1 Series coupe. Now, we've already sorted out the wheel speed sensor on the near side rear, which was a problem, and it was flagging up the traction control light, ABS light, all manner of things, and causing loads of juddering. So that's sorted and done. One more little problem though while we get this ready for MOT, and that is that the brake pad wear indicator is activated because the brake pads on the rear right corner here are too low. We will change the brake pads across the axle, but for the benefit of this video, I'm just going to show you how to do it on this side because we need to change the pads and the wear indicator, which is this little sucker just here. So essentially what happens, I'll take this out of the packaging and show you. So if you've got this same problem on your BMW, then what basically happens is, as you're driving along and you wear those brake pads down, this little sensor here sits inside the brake pad. So the disc is spinning round, wearing the pads down, and this little nodule here, when that has worn off, it activates the brake pad wear sensor so that you get a warning in the car to say that the brake pads are low. Now, whilst it's not an MOT fail to have a worn brake pads as long as they still work and they still have a minimum thickness, it's annoying because the light stays on in the car and you can't get rid of it until you change this out. And that light is the handbrake warning light, so it's illuminated red all the time, even when the handbrake's down. So what we're going to do is swap this out, swap the pads out and cure that once and for all. So let's get cracking. So the issue as it stands then is, as you'll see, the handbrake is down. So let's put the key in and let's fire it up. And what you'll see is that that red handbrake light does not go out. And it should go out because the handbrake's down. Now, the reason for that is the brake pad wear sensor on this car has basically activated because the rear brake pads have worn too low. So we're going to show you how to swap over that sensor and get rid of that light once and for all until you wear the brake pads down again. So obviously, first step, let's get the car up in the air so the wheel's off the ground. There we go. And because I'm old now, a kneeling mat is essential because my knees do not thank me at the end of a long day on a cold, rock-hard concrete floor. So let's get that wheel off and out the way. That's our first thing. Oh. Now, all the wheel bolts are out, but as you can see, it's not coming off. And this is really common, especially with rear wheels. They can jam on a little bit. So, trick with this, don't use a big steel hammer because you don't want to hit your aluminium alloy with a steel hammer. But this is a copper and a leather hammer. So it's essentially a dead blow, but the hammer itself will absorb more of the impact than the wheel. So we just use the leather side and we just give the wheel a few little bops in the right place and that will start to loosen up and come off the car. So it's just a really handy tip for when your wheel is stuck on like that. You can just give it a little bit of a whooping and it will pop off that hub. So I'm going to work at that because I need to get down there and be at a better angle, but we'll get that off and we'll carry on. Upon closer inspection, when we've taken the wheel off, the brake pads have actually got plenty of meat left on. If you could get in there, kind cameraman, and show, there's plenty on there and the sensor itself isn't even worn down. So it's telling me that the sensor's probably just dead. And to be honest, when I came to it, it feels like somebody's fitted a sensor of an incorrect length and it was very tightly pulled around the brake caliper and this casing was split. But on closer inspection, if we look there, it's broken and frayed the wires. So that is our issue. The sensor itself is still intact. However, broken the wires, so that was the problem. So I don't even need to change the pads because it makes no sense to me to swap these pads out prematurely. Let's get the rest of the life out of these first, then we'll change the pads. But for now, we'll just swap the sensor, and you can do this without even removing the caliper. So quite simply, I'll show you in a moment on a new brake pad how that slots over. But basically, the sensor goes into the back there and the rear brake pad, and it slots into a little hollow in the brake pad, just like that. And then that basically, as the disc comes around, it'll wear that sensor down. So if you want to swap one of these without changing the pads, if you've got a similar issue, this is how you do it. I've simply prized it off the end of the pad with a pair of long nose pliers. I've threaded it through these little cable ties on here. They're usually the plastic clips here, but someone's added cable ties because the bottom of the clips usually break and then you can't hold the wires together. So all you do then is take out, you don't have to take it fully out, but you have to drop the arch guard away and then we'll get in there with the camera and show you the plugs. But for now, I'm just going to undo the fixing. So we've got a couple of plastic 10 mils, which you'll see there's a couple, one on the back, one on the actual wheelhouse inside here, where I'm undoing at the moment, cameraman, if you will. So there's a plastic 10 mil there. There's also one a little bit further up here, then a couple of 8 mils here. So we'll undo this one. And it's super simple job, this, super quick. It's something that you can definitely do on your driveway if you have a few basic tools, and you can save yourself quite a bit of money in labour. And bear in mind, these new sensors, they're like seven or £8 each, so they're not expensive at all. And you can definitely do this. You don't need to be any kind of mechanic to be able to do it. It's very simple, swapping out of parts. So I'm just going to get the rest of these screws undone, and then we'll show you where the plug is. When you've got those fixings undone, as I say, you only need to half drop it away. You pull the arch liner out and you'll see, you'll chase your wire up, and there we have the plug for the brake pad wear sensor. So there's a couple of tabs on top. All you do, squeeze them in, and they're usually a little bit stiff because as the plastic gets older, it goes a little bit brittle. But once you can squeeze that tab in enough, of course, doing it one-handed doesn't always help. But once the tab is in, you'll find that the plug will just pull apart like so, and then you can feed it out, and there is your old brake pad wear sensor. So let's get the new one in, secured in, and see if we've cured the problem. So another part of the issue that I found is when you hold these sensor plugs level and then you stretch the wires out side by side, keeping them nice and level and making sure that one doesn't overtake the other, what we can find is, I did say this old sensor felt really tight. And essentially, when you stretch them out side by side, I've noticed that the new one, there's a good sort of 3/4 of an inch to an inch difference in the length. So it's just that this one was too short. I think somebody has maybe fitted the wrong sensor at some point, or a sensor from maybe a 3 series or something like that, and it just doesn't quite match up. So this, either way, this is going to provide us with a much better solution, and we know that that is probably why that wire's frayed, because there was so much tension on it that it's just chafed on the edge of the brake caliper and eventually worn through. But yeah, that's exactly what will happen if you fit the incorrect part. So we'll throw this one on. So it's simple as reversal of removal, get that plugged in, get it housed up in the little clip, which we'll show you in just a moment, and then thread it back through and plug it in, and we should be golden. Right, when you plug your sensor back in like this, you'll see there's a little holding bracket and a cage up here that holds these round plugs, but it's important to notice that these wires have these little, almost like a grommet with like a slot cut in, and you want to make sure that that lines up and pushes into that housing at the bottom, because it holds it nice and snug and it doesn't just fall out. So I'll prise it out just so you can see. There's the wire, and then we make sure that's lined up with that slot, push it in, and it will just house the clip nicely. So it's not flapping around or getting snagged on anything. So that's that. Right, we'll drop that out, put the arch liner back in, and we are good to thread it through, and this should be problem solved. There we are, so that's the arch liner back in. What we'll do now is thread this through, find the route, clip it in, and then we'll go inside, check that the light's gone out, and if not, we'll have to put the code scanner on and reset it, or reset it from the dash. So let's find the nice route for this cable. That's the first thing to do. So what you'll see is, on the subframe here, there is these plastic clips, and these are designed to hold on to the speed sensor cable, as you can see that's already there, and also this brake pad wear sensor cable. So you make sure that they're in, and then you can clip them down nice and snug. And there's usually like a few little pockets on here as well where you can get different cables, so you can always make sure that they're not overloaded. But we'll just send that through. It has to go round the back of the suspension spring like so it can come along this upper control arm. We'll make sure it's tucked into that wiring clip there as well. Because again, you don't want these getting caught up in the subframe or the suspension while the car's moving along, because that can be the easiest and fastest way to cut straight back through the wire and give yourself another absolute headache having to do it all again. There we go, that was that one done up. So the top of the back of that clip is missing, but that's plenty enough because it's in there as well. So let's send it through the cable tie downs on the top control arm here and make sure that we've got it all roughly where we want it now. Somebody has replaced the BMW cable tie downs with actual cable ties, which is fine. We was able to thread the old sensor out, so we'll be able to thread the new one through by just creating a little bit of room in those cable ties, nothing too drastic. And then at least we know it's all where it needs to be. Okay, so there's number one. Number two. It's always important to note the route of the cable before you remove the old sensor when you've got them tangled around suspension and subframes and control arms and things like this, because it can be a very, very easy way, as I say, for the cable to get cut or chopped, and then you've just got the same problem all over again, which is exactly what's happened here. So then we drop it down and we put it on the actual brake pad itself. So what I'm going to do is try and get the camera in so you can see exactly where I slide it in. So if you just pass me that cameraman, then I will go around here and try and point out, if you can see with the light, there's a little slot in the brake pad just here. There you go, and I'll just wait for it to focus, and then I'll try and push the actual sensor in whilst I've got the camera aimed at it. The light isn't very good, so let's just see if I can readjust and we'll get you back on. So then, now we've got some light on the situation, we can see there's a little hollowed out slot just there in the pad, and that is where the sensor goes. Now it's important that whichever pad it's in, that little nodule there on this side is actually facing into the disc, because the disc is what's going to wear it down at the same rate as the pad. So all you do is just establish that where it needs to be, and then it will just push and click into place. It doesn't take a lot of force. If you're having to force it, it's not correctly lined up, so then you need to just sort of take a step back and reevaluate and line it up. It can be quite difficult, especially whilst you're trying to hold a light, to actually get it in position. And especially when you're trying to hold a light and film at the same time. So this is why we do this, so that you guys can try and attack it with a good amount of confidence and you can see exactly what you're doing. Right, I'm just going to put the light down for a second so I can use my other hand just to clip that on. You can see where it's going from there anyway. So let's get that clipped into position and then I'll show you it once it's all in. So just another little tip I like to do, because we don't have to worry about the rear wheels turning, I just take the bleed nipple grommet here and I tuck the wire behind that. Now, providing you've got enough wire, it's going to sit perfectly when you do that. It's not going to put any excess strain on the wire. We've got enough slack there, but we know it's not going to move around and flap around and come anywhere near into contact with any of the moving parts. So that's just something I like to do on these particular cars. But next thing to do, let's get the wheel back on, let's get the car on the ground, ignition on, and see if our problem is solved. Okay, wheels back on, let's get it on the ground and let's see if we can reset that sensor. We're in the car now. The way you reset these brake pad wear sensors, essentially what you need to do is turn the ignition on. You'll get all your initial warning lights and whatnot. They'll come up, go away. Right, once they're gone away and you're at this stage, there's a little button down here in the corner of the dial. You hold that button for a few seconds and what you're going to get is a menu pop up inside the instrument cluster here. So we're into that menu now and you can see the little icon in the small square there. If you go back to the front one, Dan, you'll see that that signifies that's the front wear sensor, and then when you flick it up, picture of the back of the car, that's the back wear sensor. So then what you want to do is come around to the stalk, okay, and you'll be able to essentially hold that button where it says reset, and then what will happen is it will come up with that little clock that moves around, and it should give us a mileage value once it's reset. There we are, perfect. So that shows that that's worked, because if that doesn't work, all you get is a lot of lines where the mileage should be. So now we should be able to fire up the car and we should have that red handbrake light cured. We may have to actually drive the car a little bit. There we go, sorted. So operated the handbrake. Now that light absolutely sorted. So this car now is ready for MOT. So there's no warning lights on the dash. We've bottomed that off. We've bottomed off the speed sensor in the previous video. So now this one can go for MOT, and we are all singing, all dancing.
I'd take job well done, wouldn't you?
I would definitely. And you see from that how much of a super simple job that it actually can be. So you don't need to waste crazy money on labour having a mechanic do that for you. If you've got a few basic tools and you can get your car jacked up, you can do that on the driveway. Now, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this and way more exciting stuff that we've got coming up, such as full-on restoration projects and customisations, some famous faces on the channel that are very friendly with us that we're making content with coming up very, very soon.
Ring that bell.
Ring that bell, yeah, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. It'd be great to have you along for the journey and subscribed, and we really appreciate it, and it massively helps us as a small channel to build our audience like that, and also enables us to bring way, way, way better content to you as well. So smash a like on this video, let us know in the comments if you got anything from it or if it's helped you, or even if you need to ask a question about the job, just drop it in the comments and then subscribe if you wouldn't mind. So we will see you in the next one. For now, that's a wrap.